I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, especially not on some kind of anonymous forum where people just vent about their messed up relationships. But honestly, I feel like I need to get this off my chest, and maybe someone out there has gone through something similar and can tell me what to do. So here's the setup. I'm Mark, I'm 38, married to Lisa for about 5 years. We started out strong, built a pretty good life together, or so I thought. We had a decent business, just a small startup that I poured a ton of my time and energy into. It was our little dream, and Lisa was supposed to be my partner, my best friend. But lately, things just felt off. She was acting weird, and I don't mean just the usual busy with work stuff. I mean, she'd come home later, be secretive about her phone, get defensive if I asked questions. Small things at first, but enough to make me start paying closer attention. I remember the night I first really suspected something. I was at the office late, working on the quarterly report, and I noticed Lisa's phone kept ringing. She was out with her friends, supposedly. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I saw a message pop up on her phone when she left the room. Just a quick glance and my stomach sank. It was from some guy named Ryan, nothing explicit, but the tone was flirty. "Can't wait to see you tonight," and a smiley face. That's when I started feeling like I'd missed the signs, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I decided to follow her on a hunch. One night I casually checked her GPS. She'd been going to the same neighborhood a lot lately, always late at night. I decided to look through her emails and texts when she was out. What I found? Well, it was enough to make my blood run cold. She was meeting someone. Not just Ryan, but someone else, someone she kept calling her guy, and she kept saying they'd discuss the company and what's best for business. But I knew better. I knew it was about her and Ryan and whatever else was going on behind my back. The worst part, I found some board meeting minutes saved on her laptop, apparently. From a secret session with someone. I read through them, she and my business partner Jason talking about morale, confidential projects, and the buyout offer. I couldn't believe it. That's when I realized that this wasn't just some fling. They'd been planning something, and it was probably going on for a while. All the while, I thought I was building a future with her, and she was out plotting with him. A damn betrayal on every level. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, like I didn't even know who she was anymore. The shock hit me hard, but what hit harder was the sense of betrayal. I mean, this wasn't just about her cheating on me, though that was enough to break me. It was the fact that she'd lied right to my face about everything. She'd been bitchy, dismissive, even downright rude when I'd ask her questions. And deep down, I knew she'd been hiding so much. It all made me feel like I was living with a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. I kept replaying all the moments where she was cold or distant, and it dawned on me that she'd been hiding this secret for months, maybe even longer. I was furious, honestly. But at the same time, I felt crushed. Betrayal from someone I loved and trusted. It was like a punch in the gut. I wanted to confront her, to ask her what the hell was really going on, but I also knew I had to be careful. I couldn't just accuse her without proof. Still, I had enough to know that the woman I married had been cheating on me with my own partner, and they'd been scheming behind my back about the future of the company I'd built from scratch. That wasn't just infidelity. That was a full-blown act of betrayal, and it changed everything for me. After I dug up all the evidence, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind was racing, trying to process everything I'd just uncovered. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. The hardest part was knowing that Lisa, the woman I'd trusted, had lied to me every step of the way. She acted bitchy and dismissive when I questioned her. But behind my back, she was scheming with Jason, planning some kind of buyout, probably to cash out and leave me holding the bag. The day I found out was a total shitstorm. I was supposed to meet her for dinner, a little date night to relax after a long week. But my gut told me to check her phone one last time, just to be sure. I knew it was a risky move, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd find more proof. I unlocked her phone when she went to the bathroom, and what I saw chilled me to the bone. There were dozens of texts between her and Jason, flirty, suggestive, even outright sexual. And what really got me? The way they talked about the future, as if I was just some side character in their little scheme. That night I didn't say a word during dinner. I just sat there, listening to her bitch about her stupid boss and how boring everything was. She kept throwing shade at me, calling me too serious, obsessed with work and not fun enough. I wanted to scream at her, ask her what the hell she thought she was doing. Instead, I just played it cool, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was boiling. My mind kept flashing back to those secret meetings, the board minutes, the private sessions, everything that told me she had been cheating, lying, betraying me for months. The next day, I decided I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I needed to confront her, face her with what I'd found. I waited until she was home, then called her into the living room. I laid it all out: texts, emails, the minutes from the meetings. Her face twisted, her eyes widened, and she started lying right away. Her excuse: that I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into things, that she and Jason were just colleagues who talked about work. She threw in the classic line, "You're overreacting, Mark. You always do this, blow things out of proportion." But I saw through her bullshit. I knew she was lying, that she'd been cheating on me with Jason, maybe even more than that. The thing is, her reaction didn't surprise me anymore. Lisa's always been bitchy and manipulative, sweet-talking when it suited her, then stabbing you in the back when you weren't looking. She's a master at lying, and she's good at twisting everything around to make herself the victim. She started calling me crazy, jealous, and even accused me of spying on her. That only made me angrier. Deep down, I knew I'd caught her, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to ignore it anymore. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved and trusted, and it hurt more than I ever thought possible. That confrontation was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending her lies were just little white lies. She'd been sleeping with my business partner, probably for months, maybe longer, and it all came crashing down in one explosive moment. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her entire character, her deception, how she'd lied to me and played me for a fool. I was furious, heartbroken, and utterly lost. I didn't know what was worse, knowing she'd cheated or feeling like I'd given my entire life to someone who was just using me. That night, I sat alone, trying to make sense of it all, knowing deep down that my world had just flipped upside down. The days that followed that confrontation were a blur. I felt like I was walking around in a daze, unable to focus on anything. My mind kept replaying that night, her lies, her bitchy smirk when she tried to deny everything. At first, I thought about just packing up and leaving, cutting my losses. But then I realized I needed to think smarter, plan my next move carefully. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me or destroy everything I'd built. I started digging even deeper, looking for more concrete evidence. I went through her emails more thoroughly, checked her bank accounts, and even hired a private investigator. Turns out, she and Jason weren't just sneaking around with texts. They'd been meeting in secret, staying late at some hotel downtown, even going on overnight trips. I found receipts, hotel bills, and some photos of her in bed with Jason. That was the moment I truly felt the full weight of what she'd done. It wasn't just a fling. It was an affair with my partner, my supposed friend, and it had been going on for months. The more I uncovered, the more the rage built inside me. I felt betrayed in the worst way possible, like I had been played for a fool all along. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity, like I finally understood who she really was. She'd been bitchy, manipulative, and lying her ass off ever since she got caught. Her constant denials, her sneering attitude, you'd think she was some kind of victim. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that she didn't mean for it to happen. But I knew better. I saw the texts, the hotel bills, the private meetings. This wasn't some mistake, it was a full-blown affair. I had to decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to just pack up and leave, to get out of this nightmare as fast as possible. But another part, my pride, my sense of justice, pushed me to do something more. I decided I'd put her on the spot, confront her in front of everyone, and make sure she understood I wasn't some idiot she could string along. I wanted her to feel the shame, the guilt, the humiliation that she'd inflicted on me. If she was going to lie, I'd make sure she paid for it. I wasn't going to let her ruin me without a fight. So I gathered everything I had: photos, text messages, emails, receipts, and I went to her. I told her I knew about everything, that I'd uncovered her affair with Jason. She looked surprised at first, then defensive, then outright bitchy. She started throwing her usual tantrums. "You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. You're just jealous," and the classic, "you don't understand our business." But I wasn't buying any of it anymore. I laid out all the evidence piece by piece, watching her try to deny, deflect, and lie her way out of it, but I had her cornered. Her final act was to turn on me, to tell me I was possessive, paranoid, and crazy for suspecting her. She spat out the words with that bitchy tone she's so good at, like I was some pathetic fool who couldn't handle the truth. But I wasn't a fool. I was just someone who got betrayed by the woman I loved and the man I trusted. That's when I realized I had to do something drastic. I couldn't stay married to someone who had no regard for me or what we built. I felt hurt, yes, but also furious. I knew I had to get out, to reclaim what was left of myself, because staying meant accepting her lies and her betrayal. That day, I decided I'd do whatever it took to make her pay for what she'd done. Not necessarily in some revengeful way, though part of me wanted her to feel the same pain she'd caused me, but in a way that would finally make her see she couldn't keep playing games with my life. I refused to be the fool anymore. I was done being her punching bag, her fallback, her secret. She wanted to lie and manipulate, fine, but I was taking back control one way or another. The aftermath of that confrontation was even worse than I expected. Lisa, true to form, turned her bitchy attitude up to 11. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, and insisting I was crazy for not trusting her. She lied so effortlessly, it was almost impressive. She kept saying she was innocent, that everything I found was just a misunderstanding, that Jason was just a business colleague, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I wasn't about to let her spin her web of lies again. I felt a mix of emotions: anger, heartbreak, betrayal, and a deep sense of disappointment. I had built a life with her, trusted her with everything, and she repaid that trust with this bullshit. It was like waking up from a nightmare to find the person you loved most in the world was just a facade, hiding someone else entirely. I couldn't look at her without seeing the lies behind her eyes. That bitchy smirk, the dismissiveness, the way she always dismissed my concerns. She was a master manipulator, and I was just another pawn in her game. In the days that followed, I made the decision to get legal advice, start the process of separation. I wasn't planning on just walking away empty-handed either. I wanted everything: the house, the business, the money. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about her destroying everything I worked for, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I hired a lawyer, gathered even more evidence, and prepared to fight for my rights. It was the only way I could feel some sense of control over this chaos. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She'd cry, call me possessive, accuse me of trying to ruin her, all the typical manipulative shit. She'd say I was jealous and paranoid, but I knew her game now. She was trying to guilt-trip me, make me look like the villain so I'd back down. But I wasn't backing down. I had everything I needed: proof of her affair, the private meetings, the hotel bills, and I was ready to expose her for what she really was. The hardest part was seeing how she still tried to manipulate the situation to her advantage. She'd call friends and family, spin her version of events, and try to paint herself as the victim. She'd say I was crazy, that I'd overreacted, and that she was doing this for our future. But I saw through all that. I knew her for what she was: a bitchy, manipulative liar who thought she could get away with anything. I also realized how much I'd let her control me for so long. Now that I knew the truth, I felt angry at myself for staying so long, for ignoring the signs. Still, part of me was also exhausted. I'd given everything to this woman: my trust, my love, my future, and she'd thrown it all away for Jason, for some secret affair, for her own selfish needs. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming sooner. But the truth was, I was blind because I loved her. Now, that love was replaced by a bitter coldness I couldn't shake. I had no illusions anymore. Lisa was a bitch, plain and simple, and she'd used me. The only thing left was to fight for what was mine and start rebuilding my life from the wreckage she left behind. The legal process was a whirlwind. I spent days poring over documents, speaking with my lawyer, and preparing for what I knew would be a brutal fight. Lisa, of course, kept up her act, crying, pleading, and trying to manipulate everyone around her. She called me heartless and vindictive, saying I was ruining her life. She even tried to turn her family against me, claiming I was a jealous, paranoid asshole who just couldn't handle losing her. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I had the proof, texts, hotel bills, the meeting minutes, and I knew I had to stand my ground. I was furious, but there was also a strange clarity setting in. I knew I had to take control of my life again, no matter how much it hurt. I filed for divorce, asking for full custody of the business, and demanded a fair split of money and assets. I wasn't going to let her manipulate or guilt me into backing down. My goal was to get out of this mess with my dignity intact and to make sure she paid for what she did. I also started planning how I'd rebuild everything: my career, my confidence, my sense of self. It was brutal, but I knew it had to be done. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa's true nature started to come out more. She'd lash out at me, accuse me of ruining her life, and play the victim at every turn. But her words didn't matter anymore, her actions did. I stayed calm, kept gathering evidence, and worked with my lawyer to get everything in order. I also cut off contact with her, realizing that her manipulations were only making things worse. I could see her bitchy, selfish side more clearly now, and I was determined not to let her destroy what was left of my life. The court proceedings were intense. Lisa tried every trick in the book. She claimed I was violent, unstable, and unfit to have custody of the business. But I had everything documented, and I stayed composed. I told the truth about her affair, her lies, and her manipulations. I wanted justice, not just for me but for the future I was trying to rebuild. The judge saw through her bullshit, and after a few tense weeks, the divorce was finalized. I got what I wanted: full control of the business, a clean break, and a fresh start. Looking back now, I realize I've learned a lot through this nightmare. I learned how toxic someone's lies can be, how betrayal cuts deep, and how important it is to stand up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is crumbling. I also learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, and you have to protect yourself from them. The pain is still there, there's no way around that, but I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I'm finally starting to feel like I have some control again. If there's one thing I'd tell others, it's this: trust yourself, don't ignore the signs, and don't let anyone treat you like dirt. If they betray you, fight for your dignity and never settle for less than you deserve. Now that everything's settled, I can finally breathe without feeling like I'm constantly on edge. It's been a brutal ride, more than I ever thought I'd have to go through, but I'm finally reclaiming myself. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully trust again in quite the same way, but I've learned to be more cautious, more aware. That bitchy, manipulative side of Lisa taught me that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest enemies. I used to believe in fairy tales, in the idea of loyalty and love, but now I see it's more about protecting yourself and knowing when to walk away. I've started focusing on my business, my friends, and my own mental health. I won't lie, the scars are still there. And I still get angry sometimes, but I refuse to be broken by her betrayal. Instead, I see it as a hard lesson, one that cost me a lot, but one that also made me stronger. I've learned that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything to get what they want. And I've learned that you can't trust everyone, even those who pretend to be your partner. Honestly, I've come to realize that I was in a toxic situation for a long time, and I stayed because I was too afraid to face the truth. But once I did, I knew I had to cut her out completely. That was the only way to move forward. No more lies, no more bullshit. Just me rebuilding. It's not easy, and I still have moments where I feel lost, but I'm moving forward with a new sense of purpose. I want to be better, smarter, and more cautious about who I let into my life. If there's any advice I can give to someone reading this, especially those who might be going through something similar, it's this: never ignore the signs. Trust your gut. Do. Be afraid to call out lies and manipulations, no matter how convincing they seem. And most importantly, don't stay somewhere that makes you miserable or degrades your self-worth. You deserve better. I thought I loved her, but I realize now that real love isn't about hiding secrets or betrayal. It's about honesty, respect, and loyalty. I lost those things with her, but I've gained something even more valuable, the chance to start over and rebuild my life on my own terms. That's what I'm doing now. Moving on, stronger than ever and finally free from the bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. I hope anyone out there who's suffering understands you're not alone and you're stronger than you think. Keep fighting for yourself because in the end, that's all that matters.